Hello, I am Rico Cavella, and this is your Ageless Body Self-Care Guide, your operations manual for your body and for your mind. And the title of this session is Black Belt Mindset Hacks. Now, I think most people know that black belts are masters of their craft, so this is going to be pretty exciting. We're going to see how martial art masters, how they use their mindsets to really be successful in all the things that they do. So this is going to be a really interesting one, how we can really get better control of our minds so we can get better control of our body and create a much healthier, energetic body. That's what this project is all about. And we're very fortunate today. We have a great expert and teacher. His name is Will Dietz. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a college professor and a researcher. And he's also a master hypnotherapist, NLP trainer, and master martial arts instructor. He's also a good friend of mine. So, Will Dietz, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me, Rico. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So, I know there's no really definition for what the mind is. So I'm always trying to ask everybody, if they have some idea of what the mind is. The best that I can come up with is that the mind is the part of our entity, our energy body, that it's where our thoughts are developed. It's where our thoughts and our beliefs come from. And of course, our thoughts are everything. As the old saying, as a man thinketh, so he is. So it's so important to get control over what you're believing and what you're thinking, and that's by getting control over the mind. So let's have you to give your definition and talk a little bit about what the mind is.
That's pretty fascinating. Steven Pinker, he wrote a book called How the Mind Works. And if you really want to go deep, a deep dive into how the mind works, I'd highly recommend it. It's a big, thick book, and it takes quite a while to read. For me, I agree with you. There's, the mind is where thoughts are originating and all of those kind of things. But actually, we have, if you talk to most people that study the mind, they believe that there's two types of minds. One's a conscious mind, and one is an other than conscious mind. And sometimes they call that the subconscious, but that's interesting. So for example, your conscious mind is just the things that you're paying attention to, that you're aware of. So right now you're aware that you're talking to me. If you would stub your toe, you would be aware that you stubbed your toe. Those are conscious things that you think about. Maybe right now you're thinking about, I wonder what I'm gonna have for dinner. Well, that's a conscious thought. But we have other than conscious processes, and they're actually broken down into a number of categories, but I like to think of them as two categories. One are subconscious or other than conscious processes, like your heart rate and your blood pressure and all of those things. Those are things that are just like your, it's like your automatic system that's taking care of your body. And if you had to pay attention to all that stuff, you'd never get anything done. You just would not get anything done. And there's also those subconscious or other than conscious processes that are like when you're driving. You're not thinking when you're driving, you just drive. Now, that's not the same as it was conscious process when you first began to drive, right? You had to think about it. You had to pay attention. But now you get in your car and you get someplace, and sometimes you don't even remember getting in the car. Or how you cross your arms, how you brush your teeth. Those kind of things are not really conscious. I mean, you are paying attention, but they're really automatic processes. And that really goes for how you think too. And your mind has these conscious processes. We think that we're paying attention to everything we're doing. And then we have these other than conscious processes that are happening in the background. And really it's the background noise that's often controlling what we're doing. And so what we're trying to do is take control of that background noise. So then it turns from the subconscious automatic responses to conscious responses.
Yeah, I've always heard quite a bit of people say that we're actually, all the things that we're doing throughout our day, we're actually running on our 95% of it comes from our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is just really like, it's just playing back what it was programmed to to learn or believe, all through our lives. That's why we have so many, I guess we have so many negative, ideas about our life, and that's why things are holding us back, that we're not even aware that it is. But don't you believe that our conscious mind can override our subconscious mind?
If we're mindful of what's going on. That's the problem for most of us, is that life goes by automatically. And so we're not very mindful of what we're paying attention to. And that's really part of what I teach. When I think about the mind, I wrote 3 books that really apply to this. The first one is called Subliminal Success. And really, subliminal success is all about some processes you can use to start to take back control of some of these automatic thought processes. Things like NLP, things like mindfulness, things like hypnosis, things like cognitive behavioral therapy. There's different processes there, and I give an overview and some good examples for each one of those that somebody could experiment with. Then the second book is Secrets of the Black Belt Mindset. And really, Secrets of the Black Belt Mindset comes from, well, it doesn't come from, it's in parallel to Carol Dweck. I actually read her book after I wrote my book. I wish I would have read her book first, but she has a book called Mindset. That's the title of her book. And Carol Dweck's a professor at Stanford University. And she comes up with the hypothesis that there's 2 types of mindsets that people are given. You either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Now, a fixed mindset means that you think that you have a fixed amount of ability of something. So, for example, you have so much math ability, or you have so much volleyball ability, or whatever that ability is. And beyond that, you're fixed. You won't ever be able to rise above that. And we see that a lot in Western culture, especially as we're going through school. I don't know how it was for you, but when I was in school, people would say, oh, you're good at math, but you're not good at English, or you're not good at spelling, or something like that, as if there was no way to improve that.
Yeah.
Right? That I would always be crummy at spelling, but I would be always good at math, or vice versa, right?
So therefore, we have that limiting belief that we carry around with us, right?
Exactly. And Carol Dweck says, and she does a lot of experiments with children. Fascinating stuff. I really highly recommend picking up her book. My book talks about this from the perspective of a black belt. Her book looks at it from a lot of perspectives of children. So both of those books are excellent to look at mindset. But the other mindset, of course, is the growth mindset. And the growth mindset really is when you believe that if you practice, get feedback, so it's not going to be totally successful every time you go about doing something. You take that feedback, you learn from that feedback, and then you practice again. So you practice, get the feedback, try again. And over time, you become better. And the reason I came up with this hypothesis was that's how you become a black belt. Black belts don't go from white belt to black belt. Say all of a sudden you just step into the, you step on the mat and say, okay, now I'm a black belt because I stepped on the mat. It doesn't work like that. You have to practice, you get feedback, and sometimes that feedback's painful, of course, because somebody kicks you or you get thrown or these kinds of things happen. But over time, you learn through feedback how to become a black belt, how to earn your black belt. And that's the same for anything. You can take that concept and apply it to anything. So I may never be, I may never have the kind of math ability that, Albert Einstein had, for example. But I can continue to improve my math ability over time if that's what I want to focus on. So that's really what the growth mindset is all about. And that leads to the third book that I just finished. It's called Mindful Mastery, which is focusing on those things to get into a peak performance state so you can really get done what you want to get done. So once you believe you can get something done, you believe you can try and all that. So what should I focus on? What do I really want to accomplish in my life? And so that's what the third book is all about. And so that's how the conscious and subconscious work, or other than conscious processes work, is by moving it from an automatic process And sometimes, okay, and let me back up for just a second. If you're a black belt, you want some of these processes to be automatic. So if I'm sparring with somebody, I don't want to have to think about, should I block or punch, or should I kick, or what? Those things need to happen automatically, and that's good. And there's going to be times in your life where things happen automatically, and that's good. But sometimes somebody's going to say something to you, or an event's going to happen into your life, and you're going to, for example, something will come out of your mouth that you don't want it to because you haven't taken the time to learn how to control these kinds of responses. And so that's what the purpose of all of this is about. By being able to take control of my mind, I'm in better control of my life, and I'm in better control of my destiny.
Oh, that's really well said. Thank you for that, Will. So would you say that really the mindset uh, of a martial artist is that you can accomplish whatever you set your mind to?
Yes. So the mindset of a martial artist, or not all martial artists. So you have to remember that not everybody that enters the martial arts earns a black belt. So I want to stipulate that first. So I would say anybody that earns their black belt and moves on and doesn't just stop at black belt, of course, their goal was not just to make black belt and then stop there, but continues to train, then yes, then you can achieve what you set your mind to if you're willing to put in the time and the effort and get the coaching and all the things that you need to do in order to reach that level. And again, I want to point that one point out is sometimes you need coaching to get to that next level, because I don't know very many black belts that just picked up a book and became a black belt. Right. It just doesn't happen that way. You have to get that feedback, and that feedback has to be from somebody that can help you, can shape your behavior in the right way.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to my next question was, why do you think that so many people are having trouble, keeping a positive mindset, and why is that a big challenge for so many people to actually really believe in themselves? And I guess because they just never had the training or the coaching or someone to tell them that they could.
Well, part of it's that, and part of it is that they haven't had the coaching, or they haven't had the opportunity to believe in themselves in a way that they can see that feedback doesn't mean failure. So you can either define, all of us are going to have so-called failures in our life that we don't achieve what we wanted to at a certain point in time. When we define it as a failure, that's that fixed mindset that says, okay, I can't go any further, I failed. Where a black belt takes it and says, okay, that was feedback. And that's something that we also use in NLP. As you say, I'm a NLP trainer. In NLP, we teach people that whatever your environment gives you, whatever your senses give you, we look at that as feedback, not as failure. And by using that feedback, we can take that, adjust our behavior, however we need to adjust it, see how that works. And if it worked, great, we can move in that direction. If it didn't work, okay, let's try something else and move in another direction. Now, when you layer on that with somebody that can give you feedback as you're going along, that has an idea of the direction that you need to go, then that can make that trip a lot shorter, right? People fail, people fail because they believe they failed. It's because they've told themselves that I can't do this. I set up this mental barrier in my mind that won't let me move beyond this place. And that's really where learning how to create the habits of success and how to then focus on peak performance makes that huge difference in being able to move forward.
Really well expressed, Phil. Will, thank you so much. Yeah, I guess it's just kind of that whole mentality that we've gotten into in our society of it's either win or lose. It's true. There's not really such thing as failure. It's just learning. It's a whole learning process and getting the feedback and you move forward. Yeah, that's so good. Well, I think the best way that we could help our viewers is to give us maybe 3 or 4 of your really top black belt mindset hacks that you think that people can begin to do right now, that to really begin to help them to really get into that growth mindset that you talked about.
Right. So one of the best things that, so again, one of the best things or one of the best hacks I've already told you is remember that when you reach something that you haven't achieved your goal, that doesn't mean you failed. It just means you've received feedback. And that's probably one of those powerful hacks to change your mindset from Carol Dweck's fix to growth, or what I call that black belt mindset. And that takes practice. And I'll talk about how you can do that in just a little bit. The other thing is to be able to drop into the peak performance zone. So how can you drop into the peak performance zone? So you have to choose something that's important, has to be challenging to you. You can't get into the zone if you're going to the grocery store. There's no grocery store zone. Maybe yeah. For some people there's a shopping zone. I see some people like that, but for most people there's not a grocery store shopping zone, right? So in order to get into the zone, you have to decide what's most important. So this is a technique that I've taught for years to people. It's to answer the question, why do you get up in the morning? And a better way for some people to look at this is to say to yourself, if tomorrow I would wake up and found out that I won the $10 million lottery, how would I spend my time? What would I use my time and focus on? So if you would spend, for everybody that's listening to this, I just say, spend the next 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes just thinking to yourself, if today I'd had $10 million drop into my lap, would I continue doing what I'm doing? I'm going to paraphrase Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs said in one of his talks at Stanford University, it was a graduating speech, he said, if someday I wake up and every day I wake up and I ask myself, if I'm doing what I want to do, and if I find that I'm not doing the kind of things that I really want to do in my life, then I just need to go do something else. And that's not exactly what he said, but it's the gist of what he said. And so that's what the $10 million question asks us. Am I really doing what I want to do? Because I only have a short time here on earth. It's a short vacation that we have. And so am I using that time in the best way possible to help myself and as many people as I possibly can, if that happens to be your focus in life? So first thing is to choose a challenging task. The next thing is you want to set clear goals on what you're trying to do. So what are my clear goals? In order for me to achieve this, I need to set short-term goals, long-term goals. And I go into depth in how to do all of that in my books, of course. But really, what goals, what are my long-term goals? What's going to bring me to my North Star? And then what are the short-term goals that are going to bring me to those goals so I can achieve that North Star? Next thing is really important. If you want to drop into the peak performance zone, you want to get rid of all distractions. And so many people, you see that they have their phone on and they got the TV on and they got all kinds of things, distractions going on. Maybe kids are coming in the room. And when I need to go and when I need to be performing at a peak level, my mind has to be focused on what I'm doing. If I'm sparring with somebody who's a black belt at a high level black belt, I surely don't want to focus on what I'm going to eat for dinner, because I'm going to get my lunch handed to me, that's for sure.
Right.
So you want to get rid of those distractions, which also leads to the fourth one. You don't want to multitask, because multitasking is what people think is achievement, but you don't get two things done at the same time. You get one thing done and then you get another thing done. The fifth thing is you want to really focus on strengthening your concentration. And the way you strengthen your concentration, of course, is what you teach, is strengthening your body, because by strengthening your body, you're making your mind stronger. And one of the ways we make our body stronger and mind stronger is to get good sleep. A lot of people don't do that. They sleep 3, 4, 5, 6 hours and say, oh, I've got plenty of sleep. Some people can function on 5 or 6 hours of sleep, but most people can't. And then you get that sleep deficit and you're not operating at a peak state. And the final thing is to monitor your emotional state. And that's really what I talk about in in mindful mastery is how do you monitor and master your emotional state? And so those are 6 things that you need to do to drop into the zone. And the way you are able to mindfully master your emotional state is through what I call the 5-step or the 5R process. And so the 5R process comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. And so the first part is to recognize the thoughts that are coming into your head. We have so much self-talk going on in our heads all the time, and things that we don't even think about. So for example, maybe I'll mess up and I think, what a stupid thing to do. Now, if I said that to you after you did something, what would you say to me? Well, that's not very polite, and you might not want to hang out with me very much if I said that to you. But if I say it to myself, I say, well, you know, I don't really mean it. But that's not, is that true? Is that really true? And if we really dig down, it's not true. And of course, those come from all kinds of places. Could come from your parents, your teachers. It doesn't matter where it came from. What really matters is it's coming up. So that's the first R, is to recognize when these things come up. So when you recognize it, you want to record it. Now, the way you record it, you can write it down on a piece of paper. I'm old school. I have a notepad that I write things down on. But you can also talk into your phone, put it on your notepad. I mean, there's hundreds of ways probably today that you could capture it. So the first thing you want to do is recognize it. Then you want to record it. And then you're going to take those 2 parts in the evening. You're going to look at that and you're going to say to yourself, okay, I had this thought. I recorded it. And so when did this happen? Did it happen at a certain time of day when I was talking to a certain person? You're going to analyze it. And then you're going to remind yourself, look, I said that to myself. You know, I always mess up. But is that really true? Well, we know that's not true, because if I always messed up, I'd never get anything done. So then I remind myself, okay, well, when was a time when I actually accomplished something? So I give myself some reminders, that's the third thing, of when I was successful at something very similar. Now, it doesn't have to be that exact thing, it just has to be a similar thing. I take that reminder and then I make a replacement phrase. So I always mess up. I'm very good at taking feedback and learning from it and becoming better. Okay, so that, I'm not saying I'm always perfect. That's your mind's not going to accept that. What I'm saying to myself is, I'm always good. I learn from my feedback, and from that feedback, I can become better. And it could be a lot of different things, a lot of different replacement phrases you can do that or use for that. And then finally, I'm going to do this on a regular basis. I'm just going to repeat it. So the next time that comes up, I'm going to tell myself, oh, you know, that you always mess up. I come back and I say, no, I take the feedback that I give and I become better. And then over time, that replacement phrase becomes my phrase that comes up. So that's a 5-step or the 5R process that you can use when you get those random thoughts that are coming from your subconscious and can help you think differently.
Well, that's so good, Will. That was really good. I really appreciate that. Yeah, because I think that's the most important, is to get control of our emotional state, because our emotions are really what create our feelings, and then our feelings is what create the actions that we actually take. So that's so good. That's a really a good way to get a hold of actually get a hold of your emotions. So I want to remind all of our viewers, you know, that in addition to this video training, you also get an audio, and you get there's a PDF that comes with it. So you have the transcription, so you can read this over and over. And then I just really encourage you, as I have always with all these sessions, you know, to stay connected to our experts. You know, go to their websites. You know, they have lots of information there. Sometimes they have free gifts. They have, you can check out their books. You can get some coaching from them. So you can always learn more. So I just want to remind you to stay connected to our experts, because they have so much more to offer you. So Will, this comes down to the last question that I like to ask everybody, and this is the toughest one of all to answer, but I'm looking forward to what your answer is. Okay, so what ideas do you have to motivate people to actually take action on your recommendations. You know, I always like to say that, you know, knowledge without action is useless. So what ideas do you have to get people to actually say, okay, that sounds really good to me, what you just said, I'm going to do this. So how can you motivate them to actually do it?
Well, I can't motivate anybody. I want you to
Right.
know that.
Okay.
Only people can motivate.
Inspire, maybe inspire then.
So is it okay if I just share a story with you instead
Sure.
of
Yeah,
trying to?
whatever. Okay, sure.
So this happened in the early to mid 70s. I was in Hong Kong. And I was there on R&R with a couple of buddies, went to Pinky's Tattoo Parlor. And Pinky's Tattoo Parlor was known throughout Asia at that time as the tattoo parlor. And my two friends were going to get tattoos, of course, and I went to hang out with them. And one got a tattoo of a butterfly on his back. You know, this is the 70s after all. And the other one got USDA choice right on his right butt cheek. You know, that was, now he's he's over 60 now, so that's probably not such a good looking tattoo anymore. That's probably not what we would think about. But so anyway, I'm sitting there, they're getting their tattoos, and there's people getting tattoos of battleships on their backs, and Bruce Lee with nunchucks going off on their chest and stuff like that. And so I'm walking around, and there's this counter. It's probably 20, 25 feet long, and I'm looking at all the different tattoos that you could get. And they hand me a beer because they figure they might be able to pursue me to get me to get a tattoo if I would drink that beer. If I drank their beer, I didn't get a tattoo. but I finally ended up, and there was this tattoo with this anchor, and across it, it said "Born to Lose." And I looked at, there was an old Chinese guy smoking a cigarette and blowing it in my face as we're walking along. I says, do people really get that kind of tattoo on their body? And the old guy, he taps his head and he says, before tattoo on the body, tattoo in mind. Now, I don't remember if you remember Kung Fu, but Kung Fu is that series on TV where David Carradine walked across. That was a real Kung Fu moment, where Master Po comes up and he gives you all that wisdom. And so that's what I really want to leave everyone with. Whatever you put in your mind is what's you're gonna experience in the outer world. So I don't really know how to get you to take action except to let you know that if you want your outer world to change, you need to change your inner world. And I'm sure that you're gonna have a lot of people through Rico's series that are gonna give you lots of great ideas on how to do that. And it doesn't matter who you pick. I want you to know, I'd be glad if you picked me, but I know that I might not fit you. But the only way that you're going to move from where you are now to where you want to be is decide that you can earn your black belt. You can move from where you were to where and you need to get a mentor to help you move there. And if you do that, then action's a lot easier to take because your mentor will keep pushing you forward. So that's what I want to leave you with, Rico. Not that I could give you dozens of ways that I use to motivate myself, but they may not motivate you.
Yeah, that's so good, Will. That was so good. I love that story. Before tattoo in body, tattoo in mind. That's so cool. That is so cool. Yeah. So the whole point of, this whole project is to help you learn how you can better care for your body and your mind so you can live a healthier, more energetic, successful, happy life, and so you can go out and make a bigger difference in the world. So it all comes down to you got to have that mindset first that you want to be your best self and you want to take better care of yourself. So, Will, that was great. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me, Rico. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So it's all about your mindset. So I love the word mindset because it's mindset. That means you can actually set your mind. You can set your mind for however you choose.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks very much for being here.
All right. Thanks again, Rico.